Yo, let's do this. Episode number 3 of the Drop In podcast. We are joined today by Reece Wilson. How's it going, man?
Not bad, not bad.
Pretty good to have the 2020 UCI Downhill World Champion in the house, or in the van. Yeah, I guess we can't start anywhere else other than that. Like, how does it feel?
Still pretty strange to hear it, to be honest. There's been a lot of people saying it, and I think when people actually say it out loud, it sounds the craziest. Nah, it's weird, but since I've come home and just seen the family and usual friends and up to the usual stuff, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's settled in yet. I've just kind of went back to going normal life, and yeah, I think it'll slowly still sink in. It's not there yet.
Yeah, how was it? Just like that sort of welcome home? Because I guess your family weren't out there like they may otherwise would have been under normal circumstances. Like, what was it like kind of coming home and seeing the family? It must have been pretty emotional. Yeah,
it was pretty good. It would have been nice to come home. Normally World Champs is the last race, so then you get to come straight home and see everybody. Yeah. But I had to go to another race, and then that kind of didn't really go to plan. And so it was just this whole year, I guess. It's just strange as, but it definitely was nice to come home, see how emotional mum and dad were. They've put a lot into getting me where I am. I think they were probably the most stoked.
It's one thing I was thinking of when I was watching it in the flat on the stream with the flatmates. Like, one thing I was thinking of was like, what must your parents be going through? Because obviously I'm a big fan of downhill. I follow what you do and stuff, but we've never really like known each other personally. But I was still like literally losing my shit watching it. So like your folks and all your friends must have literally just been like I literally couldn't even stand watch. I was literally like pacing the flat, losing my mind. So for those of you people who don't know, you must have been like such a hard watch. But
yeah, I got a bit of a glimpse on Instagram stories and stuff. One of my friends, Max Rendell, he was driving out to one of the World Cups, and they were sat in a petrol station and watching it live, and he said he just like completely broke down, burst out crying. Like it was just right in the middle of a petrol station. Looks a bit strange, but yeah, I think the emotion for close friends and family was definitely the ones that have seen that, you know what I mean, seen you going through what you go through every day, every operation I've had, sat on the sofa, peed off, like seeing all that finally come to something that good was, I think, pretty unbelievable for everybody.
It was absolutely class. Like, so tell us a bit about the run basically, because it was obviously an absolute wild one. Like, yeah, just run us through it. And just...
Again, from my side, wasn't that wild. It was like another kind of just bog standy race. I've been doing loads of motocross this last summer, basically, because we've had the whole year off. So when I got there and the track was soaking wet, super rutty. They put in loads of fresh sections. I could kind of see below the first like inch or two, it was kind of dry underneath and tacky. So like straight away from track walk, everybody was like, I could see everybody was stressing. And deep down, I was like, I can't wait to ride my bike. And there was nobody else saying that. So from the get-go, I was like, I think I'm the only one that's excited here. Yeah. And then from like practice 1, I was feeling absolutely amazing. Track was forming, running up exactly how I thought it was gonna. And yes, like pretty quickly a few people started coming around and be like, wow, Reece, you're riding real well. And even other riders stopping at the side of the track, which you never normally get because you never want to give an advantage away to anybody. Yeah. So like again, from like, it just kind of snowballed. Like the whole week just got better and better and better. And that kind of really gnarly triple before the motorway. I was one of the only guys doing that all week, which was like, when you're the only guy doing something, it's such a mental sport. And that just like straight away like shot me above everybody else. Like watching Loic and Menard and those sort of guys struggle through that was so surreal, I guess. It was just weird. I've never been in that position before. So it was just, it was just a really, exactly. It just kept snowballing all week. And then it got to qualifying and it just hit a peak where I was sat in the gate, heart rate was so high, I couldn't get it down. I couldn't calm myself down. Forgot all my lines. So as soon as I dropped out the gate, I just got confused, which was really weird. And first section kind of made a couple bubbles, rode tight, and then went through a tunnel, pulled too much front brake on, and nearly like threw the whole weekend away. Like it could have been a massive crash. So kind of had to take a big reset after that. And I was pretty stressed, to be honest, going into finals after all of that. You know what I mean? I was like trying to ignore my phone and keep myself calm. But finals was just a bit of a blur, to be honest. I can't really remember any of it. That whole morning was just super relaxed. Just another 2 normal practice runs. Track was basically impossible. Everybody was just lying on their backs, like sliding around. And I kind of decided there the best plan of attack would be main line with confidence. Yeah. And I forgot there was 2 or 3 lines I wanted to do at the bottom that I think would have been worth another 3 or 4, but would you have made it down? Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? The jury's out. So I just, main line with absolute confidence and can't remember a thing really. It was just
did you hit the triple in finals?
I was full intention on, and the route before that a lot of people were crashing on down through the stumps kind of just came out way more than I thought it was gonna. And when I popped over the back of that last stump to kind of set up for it, my bike just kind of kicked awkwardly and just had to freestyle it from there, and somehow made it through that section because I hadn't ridden any other line all week. So when I kind of dropped off around it, I was like, oh, this could be it. And somehow rode out of it. So yeah.
Well, it all worked out.
Good,
So what was your qualifying result for that, roughly?
Oh, God, I've no idea because I lost like 25 seconds. I think way down, like 40s maybe.
Okay, and then so where were you in the start list?
I think it's 30 set. I think going a number board, so around about 32nd, maybe worse than that.
So you literally had 30 riders to go.
Yeah,
So
pretty much. Yeah.
So you go down, you're in the hot seat. Like when you first go into the hot seat, are you thinking in your head, like I could have done it here, or are you just kind of like not overthinking it too much and just like let's just see what happens?
No, I mean, obviously, because there was a run I was expecting with the triple being worth a wee bit of time, the sections at the bottom that I didn't know if anybody else was riding them or not, but I knew that collectively in a whole run, I was confident I could have done like 5 seconds quicker on like just based on mistakes and pushing a little bit harder. And then I guess when I came down, initially I turned around, it was 1.8 down on the timing screen. So I was like, fuck, that's fair
just
enough.
Like a glitch.
Yeah, and I saw Jack Moyer sat there. He'd been riding amazing all week. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, that's fair enough. If he's really hung it out, that's probably what that was worth. And then it turned around again, it was up by 7. So then I kind of started doubting myself and was like, I actually don't know. I've no idea if that was good or not. It was super chill. There wasn't too many massive mistakes, but I didn't push that hard either. So I was like, I don't know. Cool. I don't know where I'll end up. And then, the wait started.
Which ended up probably must have been like well over an hour, wasn't it?
Yeah,
From
I think
when
at least 40 minutes. Yeah.
Felt like a hell of a lot longer. And just, I suppose, just watching every rider come down, and I guess the belief just must have grown and grown. Because for me watching it, I was like, I reckon that's like a top 5. And then I think it was when Remy Thirion came down, and he was
a danger man.
He looked rapid. Yeah. And he didn't really, there was no cry. He maybe had like the odd like leg out like you had in the woods.
Yeah.
But when he came out and he was like 7 seconds back or whatever it was, I was like, holy shit. I was like, I think he's done this. And then when Gwyn came and was just like completely struggling, that's when I was like, this could be on. And obviously when Loic went down, what was the sort of immediate feeling? Because it's always it must be a difficult one for you guys when you see someone go down. Obviously he was okay. But you don't want to necessarily be celebrating when one of your boys like goes down. What was the sort of emotions like running through? Is it disbelief or is it?
I guess that whole time I was just. Yeah, there was loads of riders. I'd almost picked like 10 riders where I was like, right, it's going to be one of these 10 if it's going to be one of them, or at least 4 or 5 of them. When it came to like Troy, Danny, Loris, Loic, I was like, these guys are all potential. If they all hang out, they can do it. But then I guess with most of them being down before they even got to the woods, kind of again gave me a lot of confidence. I was like, fuck, I think I've got, you know what I mean? I don't think many people will be able to ride that wood as well as I did, just based on like consistency and smoothness. So just watching, I guess, people like Remy coming in, I was like, here we go. That's one of the lines coming in. If he keeps that going all the way, I was like, that could be it. Then again, he seemed to be riding it good, but losing time.
Yeah, there was that little bit of uphill after the woods. And he seemed to be going a bit slow there. And I think that's when the splits coming, he was like 5 back. I was like, holy shit. I was like, this is on.
And then I think Mark Wallace was another one. He rode the woods absolutely perfect. I was like, oh, here we go. He's going to be on pace or faster. And he was still like a good 5 or 6 down. So then I was doubting myself. I was like, I don't even know what I'd done through there. I couldn't remember any of it. So I was like, I don't know how well I rode that or not. So I was just sat there in complete like unknown, having no idea what was going to happen. But like, we just wanted it to be over. It was so strange. It was such a weird position to be in.
It was literally so insane. Like, we had Ali on the podcast last week and we were talking about it and relating it to kind of like football. We were always like watching folk, like not really understanding like how you could get so into like watching a sport that you're not involved in. And that was definitely like my taste of that. And like, in terms of sporting events, it's definitely up there with like Petey winning at Fort William in 2005 and stuff of just like that proper like spine tingling like moment. So that's super good. Do you think being from Scotland obviously must have helped a fair bit with the used to riding in mud? Do you feel like just generally when it starts raining, the sort of Europeans and the Americans like lose their head a little bit and the Scottish boys kind of come into their own? Well, the UK boys.
It seems to be the case. It seems British guys always seem to do better when it rains, but I think it's as simple as it rains here more days than it is sunny. Yeah. So you have to ride in the rain. If you want to do your job, you have to just get out and do it. So it doesn't become like a oh, it's raining outside.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is every day. It's more, you've got more chance looking out and going, oh, it's sunny today. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just, I guess, based on just being more used to it and dealing with cold hands and tear-offs and roll-offs and wet feet and just being cold and miserable for a whole week, like, I guess we're just used to that.
Yeah.
And when you're from a really hot country, I can totally understand that would be horrible. Like it is, you know what I mean? It sucks leaving the start gate and there's sideways snow and your goggles were that cold when you got to the woods and your face was that hot. They just steamed up, like shit that we deal with all the time here that I guess nobody else does. Yeah. So in that sense, yeah, but it was, you know what I mean? It's still a race. It's still a racetrack. It was still a lot of pressure to keep it together for a whole week. So it's like, yeah, I don't know.
Nah, it's literally like getting sort of spine tingling just like actually thinking about it. Still buzzing off it. It was so good. We obviously then moved on to Maribor the following weekend, straight into qualifying. You were top qualifier, and it was one of those moments where I definitely kind of felt like, you've seen it happen in other riders, like say Rat Boy back in 2016 when it was, where like you're sort of pushing podiums and stuff like that, and then you've suddenly like got that win. Yeah. And then for me to see you in qualifying first in Maribor, I was like, holy shit, like, Reece has just like found that, like, I don't know what you call it, like that almost like clicking moment. Was that did that almost feel like as satisfying as winning? I'm sure it's not like, do you know what I mean, in terms of like really like backing that up? Because there were still people saying the conditions were bad, which I think is insane because it's not as if the conditions changed at Worlds. That must have felt pretty good to actually just like back that up and win qualifying. Yeah,
for sure. It was definitely tough all week, hearing people say, oh, you know, the track's a lottery. And then in finals, there was a lot of people, even team managers and stuff, you could see when the riders weren't doing well, it was instantly the track's fault. The track had changed. And so that kind of straight away, you can't not listen to that stuff. So then I'm sat like in a hotel room on Moe and thinking, oh, maybe it was just the conditions. Like, maybe I wasn't, you know what I mean? Maybe it wasn't that good. And it is, this sport is honestly, like, I believe this sport is 80 to 90% mental. You could not train, but if you believe you're going to win, you'd probably be better someone that's trained that doesn't believe. Like, it's just, it's so mental.
Well, you do see it time and time again. Like I said, with like say, like Rat Boy back in 2016, Danny Hart, who'd obviously won Worlds and then come back and then had that dominant season like a few years ago. There's definitely like that sort of click, and it just
absolutely
and it must be because they're not suddenly getting better on their bikes. It's definitely a psychological thing of just knowing you can do it.
That's it. It started for me months ago, like going up to Fort William and stuff and doing gaps and stuff up there that I'd never even looked at before. I would never even consider doing. So it was just one of these things that, like you said, it just progressed. I had time. I was out of the public eye. We weren't racing for a whole year. I could do whatever I wanted to do for a whole year. And when you've been injured for as many years and off seasons as I have in a row, like you're just so low. It takes so long to build yourself back out of it again. So I guess I was kind of MIA, like under the radar, because if you're kind of out in that 20th position, nobody's really paying attention, and that's kind of where I was all last year. But it's because I told myself, oh, if I'm just top 20 after coming off a full like shoulder reconstruction, new bike, new team, I told myself I would only be top 20. And sure enough, that's kind of only where I got to.
Create like a self-fulfilling prophecy a little bit.
So then I was like, this year I was like, you know what, why don't you just tell myself I can win, and that'll be half the battle. and then you don't believe it. You tell yourself that and you're like, no, I don't think I can actually win, but you're trying to tell yourself you can. So you're just having this war with yourself, and then when you get to a race and then you win, and then you've got it all over again. So yeah, going into Maribor, it started in time training for me, actually. I've never had a good time training result. I don't think I've ever been inside the top 10 in time training. Like, I'm way out the back. Yeah, it's always the start of a bad week. So this time I was like, fuck, I'm just going to do another one of those runs that seems to be working well and see what happens. And I was third on like a bone dry, rock hard track. So I was like, right, surely nobody can say anything about that. And for myself, I wasn't doubting myself after that. And then sure enough, we just rolled into qualifying. I was like, I'll just do the same again. It seems to be working. And then won that again and was like, wow, something's happened. You know, something's went right. It was weird.
I think I was like riding with boys in Glasgow, riding street, and checked like pink bike. I was like, holy shit. I was like, Reece's now lead, like not only winning qualifying, and I forgot you get points with qualifying. So you're literally then leading. It's like, how's he? He's like literally got the world's jersey. Yeah, he's got a World Cup leaders jersey. It's like literally like tops on tops. But
yeah, I had no clothes or anything at the pits, and Andrew came down. He was like, "Man, you gotta get back up there. You got the leaders jersey." And I was like, "The what?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, you points for qualifying. You're leading the World Cup now." And I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, wasn't expecting any of that. So cool. Just an emotional roller coaster for 2 weeks.
How does that actually? That's one thing I actually was thinking at World Champs and World Cup. Do all the teams just have World's jerseys and World Cups jerseys good to go with all the sponsors on it and stuff?
Yeah, so I think UCI are in control of that. They
so
just have
they're,
a load of
ready to do it.
blanks, and they had
cool.
an iron press thing and like a trailer next to it, because it just arrived out of nowhere. We didn't know either. Trek had some of their own stickers to stick on.
Yeah, okay.
But they were like, oh no, it's all been done, and just handed us the shirt, and we were like, oh right,
like fully
sweet.
with all the sponsors and stuff.
Yeah, like ready to go. So
sweet. So what do you actually? So for World Cup, have you literally then got what do you actually wear when you're world champs?
So the world champs trumps everything. Okay. Like no matter what you have, you get world champs jersey is on top of it. So even I think if you're national champion, you can't run the sleeve or anything like that. You just have to have the all white with rainbows on. So
sweet.
Which is it's kind of cool, but at the same time it's a bummer, because it's like I'll never get to ride in the leaders jersey, which is a shame. But
yeah, so moving on from there, you qualify first in Maribor, and then you have a crash in finals day practice. Is that what it was?
Yeah,
on the Friday.
First day of finals.
And tell us a little bit about that. What happened?
I'm gonna blame myself, to be honest. It rained a lot overnight, and I guess I was just too relaxed. Yeah. And first practice run, there was the two berms that I kind of messed up in qualifying just before you come out into the open. There's a kind of left-hander that you jump into, and then you turn in another right, and if you jumped into the first, in another left, if you jumped into the first right too tight, it threw you to the inside of the next one.
Okay.
So I done it in my qualifying run. I knew I lost a bit of time, so I was like, right, first practice run, I'll just do it pretty chill, set up super high, set up for the next left, and there was just a soft spot at the top of the berm, and it didn't do the like wash out through the top, you know, when your front wheel kind of grips and it like dives under your chest.
It's almost worse.
So you're like holding onto your bars under here, you can't set yourself back up, and there was just like a tree literally right there. So I kind of done my best to avoid it with my face, but it hit me square on. And I don't think anything else hit the tree. I think I just hit it at the right angle where my head kind of hit it, bounced off. I like spun round.
Did anyone capture it on film?
Nobody captured on film. Cade was behind me. Cade'd seen the whole thing. And he was actually really upset. I'm pretty sure he went down to the pits and like was almost in tears, if not in tears. Like really, it really scared him, and it really scared me as well. It was just one of those ones that you don't see it coming. It just happens so fast. And I kind of went in a bit of shock, I think, at the side of the track, just with how, it had been such a crazy week. Everybody was so tired. I was really tired.
To go from no racing as well for over a year essentially to then you're pretty much doing three races in like 9 days or something.
Those adrenaline shocks, like waking up every morning straight into bike riding for weeks and weeks in a row. Like we started in Schladming, it was basically 3 weeks of just like spiking your body up and down for constant. It's like I wasn't ready for it, you know what I mean? I don't think many others were. It was pretty full on. Because
qualifying is essentially a race as well, so you're literally two races. They're like 6 races in like 9 days or something.
Oh, it was hectic. I mean, there's loads of other sports motocross guys do that. It's way gnarlier, but when you're used to it, it's a bit different. I think none of us trained for that, and none of us were ready for it. So I think even watching people riding this weekend in Loser, you're like, some people look tired.
Yeah,
and the travelling part of the minute sucks as well. So
I think everyone's just a little bit on edge with the whole coronavirus stuff.
It is really
it's just a big melting pot of like stress, basically.
Yeah.
So as soon as you did that crash, was it pretty much like was it clear cut decision? You're like, I'm not going to be able to race tomorrow, kind of thing, or was it a little bit of a sort of assessment in terms of whether you're actually going to be able to race finals? It'd been that day, wasn't it?
It was that day. It was like 3 or 4 hours later, I would have to be lining up again. Yeah. I mean, initially, once I kind of came round from the shock and I was lying there and I started to feel better, I was like, I feel okay, I'm going to ride down. And everybody was like, no, you can't ride. And I was like, honestly, I feel good. Like, not just okay, but I feel good. Like, I'm fine. So I rode down to the pits. And again, as like the adrenaline started to come down, I started to stiffen up a wee bit. I was like, I still feel okay. And then I went back up to the house, had a shower, and I felt amazing. I was like, I'm ready to go. Let's just have it. And then I went to get some work done on Celia, or Celia gave me some work on my neck. And just lying there, I felt a bit like strange as it started to calm down. And then when I sat up, I had this weird flicker in the bottom of my eye.
Okay.
And I was like, that's not quite right. Let me give it another hour. So I went, had a lie down, and I didn't feel bad, but I didn't feel right. You know what I mean? I couldn't 100% say I'm absolutely fine. So then I was like, spoke to the team, and they were kind of like, you know what, you've got nothing else to prove to us. You've got nothing to prove to yourself. If you don't want to ride, don't do it, because there's no point in just riding down with the track conditions and everything else. How many other people were crashing? I was going to be susceptible to a crash. So I was like, you know what, let's just play it safe. Let's just chill out. You know what I mean? Like,
in some ways, you must have been like wanting to build on what you've already done,
Exactly,
but in
that
other
was
ways,
it,
you're
yeah.
like, you know what, I can literally go home now. I've had a successful season.
Yeah, it was really hard because I've never been in that position where I've been leading and been like the guy.
Yeah.
So then I was like, fuck, I'm going to step back from that to go home and sit and do nothing and think about it. Like that's, you know what I mean? It was really, really hard to do, but I just couldn't 100% tell myself that I was okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not going to, I feel like I've got too long a career in front of me to waste it on maybe a silly little
like
crash.
you say, I
now,
think
so.
like it's so much in your head anyway, so you now know you can do it.
Absolutely.
So even though you'd love to like have kept the ball rolling and going, you'll still have that confidence, hopefully going into next year.
That's it.
Hopefully things are back to normal a little bit, which obviously remains to be seen. But
it's
actually interesting you say that about coming home and stuff, because it's something I spoke to my friend Ali in episode 2 was regarding that sort of like post-event blues a little bit. You guys probably, like, we obviously go and do shows and stuff like that, which is still an absolute buzz because you're with your mates, you're in front of shitloads of people, they're all screaming. It's not just the riding as well, like you're literally like with your pals, you're going out partying, and then you come home. Sometimes you're looking forward to coming home. Is that something you could relate to in terms of like that sort of post-race?
Oh, absolutely.
Dance?
It's horrible. Me and Coach Chris always talk about this, is that I guess athletes in general, I think they're all the same. If you've got like a kind of job that's like really high adrenaline, it's the real buzz, that you go from doing 24/7 when you're away, eat, sleep, dream, ride bikes, racing, and then you come home to nothing. And your body's just sat there, like your mind's going mental. You need something to do. Like I end up playing hours and hours and hours of golf because I'm like, I'm meant to be having an off season, like doing nothing, but I can't do nothing. It's horrible. It really is. It gets bad sometimes. And then other times you want to rest. You know, you've had a brutal long season, come to the end, and like you say, it's really nice to get home and just sit and do nothing. But when it goes the other way,
lasts for like a day though. Sometimes,
exactly.
I'm absolutely dying to get home, even though you're having like a good time. You're with your boys and all that, and then you get home and you're just like, oh, class. You like have a day of like chilling, and you're just like, oh, it's like super quiet. Like even I live with friends and stuff, but even then to compare that to like being at like some big event in some like quite often like an exotic country, whatever. It's a hard one to take. And I guess with the racing, like sometimes do you almost feel like the better you do in a race, sometimes the bigger the low is can kind of almost be after in terms of like.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. When you go from like walking around the pits and everybody's talking to you and asking you, and every time you go on your phone, you've got stuff message, blah, 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 and then you go home and you sit down in the little Scottish borders and there's nobody anywhere, and you're like, yeah, no, it's pretty quiet. There's not much going on here. Like it is just peaks and troughs, but I think I've been doing it long enough now.
I think as you get older, you get
sort of handle it.
Just kind of
like knowing
still
that there.
You just got to go through the motions a little bit, and then you kind of like pick yourself back up. So your crash in Slovenia, was it like, did you get diagnosed with a concussion, or you just?
No, I was absolutely fine. We've got a company head check that work with us, so we've got a concussion test on there. But I think there's still a lot of studying to be done behind concussions, as you know. They're so hit and miss, and there can be loads of different symptoms either way. So for me, it was just basing it on myself, not any other results or anything else. They were happy I didn't have a concussion, so they said if you want to race, we're happy for you to. But it's down to you at the end of the day. And I just decided, no, I'm going to go home, have 2 weeks because I can. I might not be in this position again, you know what I mean? And I just wasn't sure. Now I've been home for a few days. My neck's been getting a lot better, head's better. So now I'm like, right, I'm fine. I'm cool. I feel it, but I feel like I made the right decision. So, yeah.
Were you ever tempted to go back out for Portugal, or?
As soon as from day one when I saw the track, I was like, are you joking? If I've ever seen a track for me, that's it. Just like motocross as big, soft, deep, sandy holes. Like, oh, yeah, I kind of had to put my phone down yesterday. I was like, this is bad. But
nah, it's only Thursday. Like,
I know. No. I'm staying here.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think like the track looks like those jumps, like something you've always been fast on, like with what you're saying with the triples and stuff, like Leogang, and also like the motorway section of Fort Williams, something you've been fast on. Not to make you too annoyed about it.
No, it's fine.
To go back to the psychology thing, is that something you've like taken like a deep interest in, not necessarily after the races, but actually like in terms of preparation? Like, is it something you would ever say do you ever go see a sports psychologist over the years to help you with stuff, or?
No, I spoke with again Coach Chris. He is a big part.
Is that
of
Chris
what we do.
Yeah. Helps a lot.
He is a massive help to us. He's way more than just a coach. Like he's genuinely somebody. Any question on anything in life. I feel like he'll have an answer, and
That's
it's
cool.
not like his way. It's this is what I think, and you can select what you want from it. But I spoke to him and a couple of times, being like, "Oh, do you think I should get a sports psychologist?" Just because I didn't know what I was supposed to be thinking.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But I think that's perfectly normal. I think people panic when they're a bit confused and lost. Like that is totally normal. So for me, I've been like, no, this is my career. This is what I chose to do. I've got myself this far. You need to almost train yourself to be in control of your thoughts. You know what I mean? There's no point.
Yeah.
I don't feel how somebody else that doesn't really know me that well can tell me what I should and shouldn't be thinking on race day when it's so unique to you. You know what I mean? It's your thoughts are about as unique as your fingerprint. So I don't understand how somebody else can tell you how to put that in a pile and put it together on race day. The only way you're going to get good as that is by racing loads and doing it yourself and learning what works for you. So no, for me, I thought about it. I guess I fluttered with the idea for about 10 seconds and was like, no, you know what? Like, you're better than that. You get control of your own thoughts. So
have you got any sort of go-to techniques? Like if you're, say, at a race, you're not feeling it, have you got any go-to techniques to kind of snap yourself out of it, or
sometimes listen to
slap yourself across
I've
the
got
face?
some music, try and get like a little bit just chilled down a wee bit. I don't really like to be all revved up and tense coming to a race run, so sometimes I'll just select a bit of music and just go like just a wee chill out, listen to the lyrics instead of like thinking about what I'm thinking, if you know what I mean.
What's your go-to tunes like for, you got like a track that you listen to?
No, I've got a playlist called Bake Not Fried and it's pretty chill. It's got some Sticky Fingers on it, like more like acoustic kind of.
Just try to chill out.
Just chilling next to the beach. Yeah, just like
you're trying to chill out rather than
absolutely.
You're already psyched enough, so it's like more a case of bringing
pretty
it
much.
down rather than bringing
I feel
it
it's just a bit more consistent. Like when you get revved up, sometimes it's easy to go too far and be tense and try and be kind of aggro with it. For my style, it's a bit more like just kind of softer. You know what I mean? So I feel like that. I don't know. That seems to work with me, but.
Have you got quite a set routine, like in terms of like race day?
Not really, actually. I've pretty much every race this year, the 3 kind of timed sessions I would say I had, qualifying, race, time training, done 3 totally different things.
Yeah.
So like I just do what feels right. Like if I'm like, fuck, I'm feeling a bit tired, I don't want to do a warm up today, then I won't bother. You know what I mean? As long as I believe that it's not going to hinder it, then it won't, you know? So I feel like if you get caught up in sometimes, especially in this current climate with how quickly things are changing and you don't have that much control over, you know what I mean, what's happening. So if something quickly changes and somebody crashes and your time gets delayed, you see a lot of riders are like, oh, now, you know what I mean, what am I going to do now? I'm 10 minutes out. But for me, I'm like, I didn't really plan for that anyway. So, you know what I mean? Like, just less things to think about.
Riding with like the Trek team, which you've obviously been on since last year, 2019?
2019 was the first year.
Like from everyone kind of looking in, it seems like it's obviously like in some ways it's a real pro setup. It's like one of the biggest bike brands in the world. It's a factory team.
Yeah.
But they've kind of captured that sort of, well, I think I actually read somewhere that you were the oldest.
I am the oldest
rider in it, which is insane, because how old are you now? Like
24.
24. Is that like there must be quite a mixed set of vibes in that, but in terms of like the approach. Obviously you got Caden team, which seems like you obviously kind of got a good relationship with him. Like, do you, is it Cade that you would usually kind of like ride with when you're in practice and stuff like that?
Again, it's just I've my career and how I've went around it and how I go about it, how I ride, how I practice is just changing so much because I've just been searching for that thing that kind of works. So I'm constantly changing anyway. So I wouldn't say Charlie and Cade are the 2 opposite ends of the scale, like for sure. And I'm kind of like I feel like I'm an in-between. Yeah. But I do, after going to Charlie's house for 2 weeks, I was mind-blown at how hard a human can actually work.
Oh, really?
Like, just absolutely blown out. If I worked as hard as Charlie did, I wouldn't make it to the season.
Yeah.
Like, I'd get to the first race and I'd be absolutely smoked. Like, he is an athlete. But that doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for everybody, you know what I mean? But I definitely took a little bit of that, came home and was like, right, that's really good. And then a bit of Cade's just like fun, ride any bike, anywhere, anytime, because it'll teach you something. Yeah. Which is also really, really good. And
so you're on the hybrid approach.
Yeah, that's it. Stick a bit of them together, do a bit of everything, and hope that you're all rounded. So
was there something I talked to Greg Williamson in the first episode? Was there like was there a year or season where you really sort of stepped up? Because obviously, when was your first World Cup? Like 2014 or something like that?
2014, I done one as a junior. I done 2 or 3 as a junior.
Okay, cool. Was there like a season where you really sort of like this is what I'm going to do, and then you start sort of hitting the gym, or is like gym work and like proper taking it seriously something you've done from the get go? Or
literally last year would have been the start. Up until that point, I was just going like, oh, kind of top 20 would be cool. Oh, I'm injured. Let's recover. Oh, I'm just coming back from injury, top 20 would be cool, and just done that for like 4 or 5 years and never really made an effort to do anything better than that, if you know what I mean. But again, just constantly getting battered back with injuries. I was like, I don't know how much more I can actually do. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want to do too much and get tired out. Don't want to do enough. But I just kind of ended up plateauing and kind of going down with injury, up, down, but never actually climbing. So then last year, having a whole off season, same brand, same bike, same setup, just been able to go from here to here instead of down to start. So yeah, I think that last year was probably my first off season where we came into going, right, let's do something different. Let's actually put some effort in and see where we go.
When you get, obviously this season's been a little bit different, well, massively different. When you say to the last season with them, is there like a kind of quite clear, like, season's done, like super, do you like let yourself kind of, I don't want to say let yourself go, but like,
absolutely.
Do you kind of just like, because I know some riders will say like they just keep it going, like, which almost I feel must be almost like unsustainable. Do you feel you kind of like let things like dip down a bit,
I let myself
take
go.
yourself?
Yeah, I let myself go big time. I woke up the other morning and had cinnamon buns for breakfast, straight to the golf course, McDonald's for lunch if I want. Like, I normally have if it's a normal season, it'll be between a month and 2 months of just absolute, just whatever I want.
Gluttony, like.
Whatever I want. Yeah, like just really enjoy being my age for 2 months. And then get myself to a point normally where I'm so low and I feel so disgusted with myself that it's so exciting to wake up and go back to the gym because you just feel so bad. And that seems to work.
Catching yourself in the mirror, it's like
pretty much.
Side on.
Yeah, you're like, right, that's enough is enough. Even my mum's like, are you okay? Like, I'm like, right, no, I'm fine. I'll sort myself out.
Yeah, you know you're getting fat when your mum tells you need to sort yourself out. Do you party a lot? Like when you're either on, like out, when you're in season and off season? Because obviously you're a young guy.
Up to now, I'd say yes. Me and Kate had a pretty big night out in Val di Sole last year, 2 years ago, and I've definitely had my fair share of party years. I think 2017 with Eddie Masters, I got it pretty much all out of my system that year, because that was from like January in New Zealand to December in Europe, just with Eddie Masters. Wherever we went, there was a party and there was drink. So it was like a whole year of it, and I think I kind of got sick of it after that. I was like, okay, I've experienced it. I can say I've done it.
How old were you when you were on that team? It was funny, like, because when I was looking at, like, yesterday I was like doing a bit of research. I was like looking at your team, and it was funny that like that 2017 season on Bergmont almost like jumped on me. It's like, need to ask about that.
I think I was at 21 maybe. I turned 21 because I was at Leogang World Cup, and I turned 21 and they gave me a yardie. Yeah, okay. Which I'd never had before. I had no idea, and they were like, hold my hair back. I was spewing it back up, drinking it. Like, I've never experienced torture like it in my life. I'm phoning home at my mum like, oh, it's terrible. And then by the end of the year, I absolutely loved it. Just like a season drinker. Yeah, pretty much. It was like a season air, but you're riding your bikes all over the place. Like, it was amazing. So super grateful, Eddie, for showing me that, and kind of nice to get it all out the way. Yeah. And I've seen that side of it, and I know I've seen Charlie's side and how hard you need to work and how the top guys work. Yeah. So now I'm like, right, I feel like I've got a balance, but I definitely drink and party less this last kind of year off season. Cool. If I'm going to have one drink, I normally have 10 instead of, you know what I mean? Before you'd have like
I know that feeling,
loads of nights having 3 or 4, and you're like, well, what's the point? So I just stopped.
Nothing.
Yeah, stopped.
Just continue that binge drinking culture from being a Scottish boy. Like. Yeah. So in 2017, the Bergmont year, was Ed Masters actually team manager then, of literally running the programme?
Yeah, so as far as I'm aware, I think Bergmont just gave Eddie a budget, so he got to pay himself out the budget, and he had to run the team and pay everybody else out of it as well, mechanics and everything else. So, but it was pretty much just Ed Masters would be rolling into the town signs, and he'd be like, "Oh shit, I forgot to book ACOM." So we'd like park up in some car park somewhere, and he's frantically trying to find ACOM for that night for a World Cup that we've known about for months. He's just like
sounds like
typical Eddie. But
sounds like drop and roll basically. Like.
It worked out every time though, but Eddie just ended up with no budget and no money at the end of the year. So you felt sorry for him, but you're like, fuck, some of the places we're staying in were like $600-700 a night because it's all we could get. Yeah. So he's just blowing cash because he's just not been organised, but none of us cared because we were having such a good time. Like, it was almost the way to do it in a way. Yeah. You know, it was cool.
I almost like well impressed by like Eddie's done it before, and like Burn the Curve doing it with like Pivot. It must be. And I suppose Greg Williamson did it a little bit the last couple of years as well before he signed for Commensal, but it must be such a difficult one.
I don't think people, it's not just like throwing your bikes in the van and driving off to wherever you want to go. Like, there's so much organisation and dealing with the UCI and paying for all that stuff, keeping sponsors happy, finding time to do everything and be organised is so difficult. So anybody that does it on their own is big.
Yeah, it's definitely like when I saw like Greg doing it, was a little bit like, I hope he realizes like what he's getting himself in for, like, because it's going to be hard, like, because to do all that crap and then actually still pull your helmet on a Sunday and actually race
well, exactly,
when
it's as
so
mental
hard.
as we just spoke about it being, having to deal with all of that and get your race head on as well. It's so much to do, so much.
That's cool. Well, I guess that leads on. One thing I was reading just the other day was Ed Masters' Vital piece. Which, to be honest, I find it really interesting because it's like I say, as like a fan of the World Cup, I don't really know any of that sort of stuff. But yeah, it was super interesting to sort of hear some of the points that he made. I think I saw you reshare it. Is that something you like agree with, like on a whole sort of agree with in terms of like the general sort of, it's like bit of a barrier to entry into the World Cup scene, and like, can you relate that quite heavily to like your own path into World Cups?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm never going to point fingers because I don't know, and I've not been in the industry enough to know who is exactly at blame. It's obviously a collective. It's never one person or never one thing.
Yeah.
But it has got to a point now where if I lost all my points this year and I was a junior and my parents were paying for me, I was at school and I was trying to get to World Cup, virtually impossible. Like, your parents need a spare 15, 20,000 to take you on a whole. You can't just, because there's no category 1 races in the UK now, so we can't score a point. You need 40 for World Cup, so you have to leave the UK. So you have to go into Europe, which is at least 2,000 or 3,000 euros a weekend. And then you turn up to those races and all of us elites there are sandbagging because there's a World Cup the next again week. So all your IXSs then become World Cup. So how on earth is anybody supposed to score a point? Like, there's no, I don't know whether it's now it needs to split to pros, top 20 guys being in a category of their own, and there's like a feeder category below it. So you work your way through that and then you work in, but make it easier to get in it. I don't know what needs to be done, but there's definitely a problem. It's quite clear. Do
you look at it where it is now and literally think like, if this what's in place now was in place like 5 years ago, I literally like might not even have made it into the sport essentially?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I think I timed it just right in the last couple of years where it was only 20 points, I think, to get in a World Cup. The BDS was still in full flight in the UK, so you could score points at those things. Like, it did make it a lot easier, and obviously having Rory Cunningham to take me into Europe to IXSs and junior tools picked me up pretty quick. I was super, super lucky that I was just in the right place at the right time. But for kids now that like looking around and parents like messaging me on Instagram asking, can Trek help us out in any way? Like, people are desperate for help. And it's not there, it's like, it's so hard for them, and I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, I don't know who's at blame, I don't know how to fix it, but there's, something needs to change.
Yeah, it's just a overall absolute, like, it's a nightmare, I suppose, like, and like you say, it's good that you're not actually like pointing any fingers, because I suppose it is just a big difficult situation. It's just a collateral,
that's it. One situation changes, UCI think, okay, it's 40 points now, and then that affects everything all the way back to the UK National Series. Like, it doesn't just start and end somewhere, it's little bits here and there that create a big problem. I think like when I was reading it, it's just like, it's one of those ones where it just seems to be, it just creates that divide essentially between like top riders and runners. Like, you could like you say, the difference between like someone having a long career in downhill could literally be like one position at one race where they like maybe get from 39 points to 40 points. Yeah. And then once they do break in, they might be all right. Yeah. If they don't have any like speed bumps along the way, but if they don't, they could literally be like, and you might just end up losing someone who could actually go on to having like a, not just a good career, but like a really good career. Yeah. But is there any like sort of standout things that you think could be changed? Like, don't want to get into trouble. Yeah, no, that's the thing. I don't know. It's an easy one to like just say, oh, you should do this, you should do that, because there's obviously like arguments for everything. But it is, absolutely. I think it's just now I'm quite nervous about what I say, you need to be very careful, because there's a lot of people out there that'll look at you in a way and try and find ways to twist what you're saying. So I don't want to say too much. I'm passionate about this stuff, and I would like to do something if I'm ever in the position in my career to help and start something or change something. I would love to do that, because there's a few things that are pretty twisted that need to change, but like I said, things are just changing so fast at the minute. I wouldn't know where to start. I'm still kind of feeling out for myself, still trying to learn the industry. I've not been in it that long compared to everybody else, but there is definitely some things that I'll look at thinking that's definitely not right. Like that can definitely change. So yeah, hopefully in the future I'll get an opportunity to change some things for the better. It is just an evolving sport, I suppose, and I think like the nature of downhill, which you're just like, no matter what you put in place, is it's always going to be an expensive sport. For sure, no matter what you're doing, it's always going to be a difficult one to get into, like unless you kind of have
it's not like having a support family helps. It's like a support family is completely necessary. Like, I guess you must have had a support like between your dad and your mum, like with growing up, because you came from motocross, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, I could not have asked for a better upbringing. My parents, I mean, I wouldn't say my dad lived through me, but he did in a way. He would love nothing more than be world champion on a motocross bike, like for years and years and years. And his dad didn't support it, threatened to cut his bikes up with 9-inch grinders on the driveway, and like that relationship was pretty weird. And then with me, it was like, I'm just not going to let that happen. Like. Took me to bike straight away. When I was too young to even make a decision for myself, I was just on bikes, started riding them, and then almost straight away, if I was like, I don't want to ride, he's like, right, that's fine, no problem. Like,
so you had the kind of perfect balance in terms of like,
I didn't have that like crazy moto dad, like, this is what you're going to do, this is all you've got. He was just like, if you ride bikes and you become a professional, that's cool, that'll be a sweet job, but if not, you do realise you're going to need school, you're going to need blah blah blah. So he just let me make my own decisions, which I think is so important. It's
such a fine balance with that, because like say like the thing is with like the sort of pushy moto dad, can actually, in terms of results, it can work, but it's not necessarily healthy.
It either works or it blows up big time. It never really goes in the middle. It never seems to end that happy. It's normally dad and lad pretty split up. It's a shame.
So your dad was he just a massive motocross fan, motocross rider, and he got yourself into it young? Was it come from your side in terms of like wanting to make that switch across to mountain biking, or?
Oh, that's the craziest story. We should probably have Rory here. He would know it better than me. But I mean, I think it started when his granny or somebody came round to his house and put two and two together that we were actually cousins. So we're third cousins. I guess
we should just quickly go back. So Rory Cunningham, who's obviously junior world champion in 2007, and has had an insane rider, has an awesome career in downhill and enduro. Is it your first cousin?
He's third technically, so it's like it's not that close, but it is. If you know what I mean, it's weird that we
still be a cool like revelation.
That's it.
So you didn't know each other at all. Basically.
No, we had no idea. I didn't even know who he was. And then I started fanboying the life out of him, and like 13, like tagging him on every single post on Facebook, and he would like look at them but not like them and stuff. Like typical Roy, like so stubborn, wouldn't show me anything. Then one day he needed a motocross bike fixed, so Dad kind of cornered him and was like, right, if I fix this for free, you take my boy out on a mountain bike. And had
you been mountain biking at this point?
No, I'd never even touched one. Really? I had no idea. We had these
just motocross?
We had these little hardtails that had just back brakes on, and we used to skid down these really gnarly rut tracks, like just at the side of the house, and that was it. And then obviously, if you go to a motocross race, you'll see all these kids bombing about on bikes. Like it's a big kind of culture there, but you just do motocross bike stuff on mountain bikes.
Yeah.
So that was all my knowledge was. And then Rory was like, "Oh, we'll go up in Leith," and it was like a Boxing Day ride. There was quite a few people there. I didn't know anybody, just this little motor kid at the back, and he was like pushing me up the hills because I never trained a day in my life, and he's taking me out in this like
an engine to take you up.
Yeah, like a big beastie, like Chris Ball style, and I'm like 13 years old at the back, like, oh, this is horrible. But straight away it was like, why are you so comfortable at speed? Like you're out of control, you're gonna crash, but you just won't slow down. So he was like, that's one thing that he felt you couldn't teach in any rider. He said the rest, technique and all the rest we can probably brush up on. But he said that's pretty unique. So from then on, I guess he kind of kept a pretty close eye on me. And whenever it came to kind of decision time, he heard I was near the end of school, he kind of got in touch again and was kind of like, I think you should go through the Borders College, and just kind of steered me, you know what I mean? Didn't tell me what to do as such, didn't take my hand and lead me, but just made me aware of what options I had.
And you know your cousins at this point, I guess.
And we had just found, actually, had we? No, we hadn't. We didn't know. That we were still complete strangers at this point. He was just a World Cup downhill rider.
He's just helping you out as a kid that's expressing interest.
Yeah, he was just,
cool.
I think, honestly, I owe my parents first and then Rory's next on who I owe it to, because he definitely stuck by me, and he's seen something when I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. You know, I was just riding bikes and doing what he done and what I could see he was doing. But I had no idea what all of that would lead into, and me being here as a world champion, him as a junior world champion, live 20 minutes from each other, cousins, like it's all just...
That was actually something I wanted to ask you about. So were you into riding when Rory won 2007 world champs in Fort William?
I didn't even know downhill was a sport.
Oh, really?
I didn't even know downhill existed until 2012.
Oh,
so shit. I was quite old. I was like 16, 17.
Cool. Yeah, because I also I saw that in that Going In film that came out last year, that you guys were cousins. I don't know, I actually think I knew you guys were cousins for that. And I then thought, I was like, thinking of your cousins, I just assumed you were cousins or knew your cousins
Yeah,
from when you were
No,
like
well, that's how
born.
normal.
So I was like,
yeah.
he must have been at Fort William and watched Rory win Worlds, which must have been like a massive thing, but turns out you weren't even there.
No, I had no
That's
idea.
insane.
We went to Fort William one year. My mum got diagnosed with cancer. I don't know why we were up there, but we decided to go and watch it as a family. And I remember being on the big drop, I guess they call it the wall. Is it just before you jump into the stadium at the finish?
Yeah, okay.
And watching guys going off there and just like all the way to the bottom, front tires, wheels folding, like blowing themselves to bits. And my brain was just melted. I was like, what even is this? Who are these people and why are they doing this? But it looked amazing.
Yeah.
And then I was too young even register. As soon as I went home and got back to normal life, totally forgot downhill existed
just
until
back on the motocross bike.
until Rory kind of ended up coming into our life through a motocross bike, and then it all kind of picked it up again. But
Yeah, cool.
yeah, when the first ever race I went to was just in full motocross kit, just literally like no idea what I was doing. Bars like 800 wide, like 2-finger braking, full motocross guy, just like didn't know what I was doing.
Do you think with motocross, do you think, like you mentioned at the start, do you think the main reason that motocross guys are fast on a downhill bike is because of the comfort at speed? Do you think that's the main thing over, like, say, actually the technical ability? Because it must be overlap in terms of but it's still so different.
It's definitely the most obvious because you're going, you're going the same speed, if not faster, for 15, 20 minutes straight. But the whole kind of strength, you know what I mean, all that stuff plays a factor, I guess, because if you can like hold on to 450 for 15 minutes on a really gnarly track, you're a strong guy, you know what I mean? Like that does not your average person can do that. So I think that transfer, when you get on a downhill bike, it feels like a BMX bike. Like it's, you know what I mean? It's you just throw it about, you feel like you can be quite abusive with it, but it's like everything, you need to get to a certain level. If you just gave your average Joe a 450 and was like, on you go, like
dead.
it wouldn't last half a lap. Like I don't think people understand how hard that is.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like one of the, like, I love watching Supercross. I actually went to Supercross like back in 2012 with Stu Thompson and Danny. I literally didn't know anything about Supercross. Yeah. I got like a crash course from Stu driving from like LA to San Diego. And like ever since then I've been like loving it. Like just constantly watching the team and like what those guys do is insane. Like I think not to take anything away from you boys riding downhill, if there's one sport that's like gnarlier than downhill, it's got to be Supercross. Like between like how many races they do, how many times the injuries they have to go through is insane. Like it's insane.
I will say not to take anything away from motocross rider, the one thing I really miss, we were playing simulator, like a Formula 1 simulator thing last night, and you know when you got your ghost best time in front of you, the difference that makes to a motocross rider having something physically to chase and gauge, like you never know how far you're going and how hard you're pushing until you see somebody else in front of you doing the same. And when they're getting wild and you're like, we're going fast here, you know what I mean? You don't realise. On downhill, you not only they've got 20 minutes, so like however many laps, or 30 minutes, so many laps and so many opportunities to make passes, change lines. They've got so much more time, and time is something we just don't have any of. We've got 6 chances a year of 3 minutes. And you're like trying to find that edge, if not being over the edge. Yeah. So mentally, I think it's way harder a sport. Yeah. But physically, motocross is absolutely brutal.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting what you say about the races. And I think I remember you posting something about this on Instagram ages ago. It's maybe like a few years ago, and it was about that sort of shortness of the season. And I think from certain people who aren't in it, they'll be like, "Oh, those guys have got it cushy. Like they only race like 7 times or 8 times a year." But in so many ways, that makes it so much harder, doesn't it?
Yeah,
where you've literally got like, because it's not as if you're not working for the rest of the time. You're still having to train all year round, or most of the year, minus your like 2 months of gluttony.
I don't think anybody understands that. It's like it's 6 races, so 3 races deep, you're halfway through the year next year. And most people, if you're in a contract year, you've got 3 races to make a difference for a team to even pay attention to you. And then quite often you'll get the last 3 and they'll go, okay, if you get a good result, we'll sign you. So then you've got 3 opportunities at a collective like 15 minutes of riding. You've got to stay uninjured between all of those and perform for 15 minutes in a whole season. And then companies are throwing around hundreds of thousands of pounds contracts worth on minutes and seconds.
And so I guess that's interesting.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's interesting when you say that, because I guess that's another example of where that sort of group of protected riders, that hopefully you'll be in now, that you've won the Worlds, they don't necessarily have to worry about that so much, because they've already got like they could probably crash the last 3 seasons and they'll still be fine. They're probably in a multi-year deal. Yeah. So that's just another thing to make that divide like bigger, because like it just all feeds into like the better getting better, and it's like such a hard one to kind of break into. But
I think that's what we were talking about before, kind of issues in sport. It's like that how you like you said, it's once you get into that pool of the top 5, top 10, you can kind of go, right, I feel, but you need to,
and then you get faster because
to get there. Yeah, exactly. And then you get faster because of it. But how you separate that and how you help the people to get to there is really difficult. You know what I mean? Nobody help the ones that are there now. You kind of just have to figure it out. You know, there's no rule book on it. So it's a
real difficult one. I guess in many ways it's like you could sort of think of changes a bit, and sometimes you just got to kind of accept that that's the way it is and make the best of it, and
absolutely
do your best to get into that sort of elite group, which I think with the World Champions jersey you can.
I don't know. I'll give it a wee while. I'm not sure I'm set yet, but I feel like I'm knocking on the door at least.
Just to go back to the motocross thing, like when you got on the mountain bike, was it very much a case of like, this is what I want to do, or was there a while where you were kind of doing both? No, you were still like pursuing like racing and downhill?
So 2013 was the kind of crux year. I decided I was going to do the full Scottish downhill series and the full Scottish motocross series. I was on a 125, so maybe 17 years old.
Okay.
And that was the year I was like, I'm going to do both and see what one I A, enjoy more of, and B, do better at. Because I really wanted to be a professional athlete in some sort, but motocross, I was kind of getting too old. And as the year went on, I think I got to the 3rd round of the Scottish Motocross Championship, crashed my brains out on a track at Loch Gilphead.
Yeah.
And I was lying on the side of the track, looking at the clouds, like, no, I'm done with this. Like, it's fun, it's cool, I'll keep doing it as practice. But downhill was going so much better, and it was just new and different. I was getting to travel the world and ride a bike with like my best mate Rory, and we're just like, it was just so much better. It was just a better energy, a better vibe. Things were going better. So straight away I was like, obviously going to head towards that.
Was there an element of like I've just been working my ass off with the motocross stuff and not really getting any like support and recognition, and then you're just suddenly on a bit of an upward trajectory with the.
I think that's weird. I think with motocross it's more to do with it, like if you've not left school at like 13 or 14 and getting homeschooled, and you've got private motocross tracks and you're travelling into Europe to ride every weekend, you're kind of not going to make it.
You got to risk it all.
There seems to be a real. I don't know if it's how it needs to be done, but it is definitely how it's done. Like you got is it Jorge Prado that's winning the 450s? He's like 17 years old and he's winning almost every 450 mile that he goes out in. So you're like, how? You know what I mean? What was he doing as a 65 kid? Like, it seems like such a different world over there. But whereas downhill, you've got people like Aaron Gwynn, even myself, that you don't need to do it from a youth all the way, and you can. It's been proven that you can kind of come in a bit later and still have a nice long career. So
it's really interesting. Like,
maybe it's just less bike time that we spoke about. Motocross guys ride so much, so they're going to get injured loads more because they're just on a bike more often and on that edge more often. So maybe that's got something to do with it. I don't know.
I think in some ways it must be like one thing I always think as a trials rider, but also a mountain biker, one thing I kind of struggle with mountain biking is that like you go out for a ride, unless you're on an e-bike, which we could talk about for ages. Basically, I always find that in mountain biking, it's like you'd go out and you'd enjoy your day, but if you're not on uplift, you're literally like, you're out on your bike for like 7 hours, but you're actually only really riding for like 20 minutes or something.
Descending time's nothing.
Whereas if you got on a motocross bike, you're literally like, you're learning, which is what effectively descent, the equivalent of a descent, which is going around the track for hours on end.
Yeah, that's it.
So I guess like you've almost like got more bike time coming from motocross as well, which is an interesting
and conditions as well, like the change in track conditions, like I guess goes back to Leogang. I was stood in the pits and I was making judgments, and I've no idea if everybody else does this, but for me, you're like, right, I rode the track 2 hours ago, I remember what it looked like, it's rained this much, I've got a rough idea what it's going to look like, I've got a rough idea what it's going to feel like. So then you're just gathering information and then making something out of it. And I was one of the ones that done that better. So whether that is because you turn up to a motocross track, you go out for one session, you sit for half an hour, you watch the weather, you go out again. Like, it's just repeating the same steps.
I feel just like multi-races in a day and stuff.
It doesn't matter what you're doing. I guess golf's one of those things as well. It's like, take out the fact I'm playing golf, I'm facing hundreds of defeats in an hour. You know what I mean? You do something, you're like, fuck, that didn't go right.
Yeah.
Which is like when you do a practice run, you crash, it doesn't go right. You need to do that whole mental process of fixing it and being ready to perform within minutes again. Like, it's all relatable. So for me, it's just doing as much of that stuff as possible to get your brain to repeat the same steps. And you should be fine.
Yeah.
Like, should be fine.
So is motocross still a pretty like key part of your training then?
Yeah, absolutely.
As you're,
I think it's high risk, but high risk often pays off. So I think if you can ride it enough, fast enough where you're getting benefits from it, but not risking too much injury, because obviously it's very easy to get injured on that stuff. But I really do feel it's beneficial more than it is risky. So I'm definitely going to continue to do that as much as I can.
It must be hard to train for downhill in terms of like, because obviously the more you practice, the better you're going to get. But the more you practice, the more likely you are, especially practicing at that sort of like high level.
Yeah.
Have you got like a fair, like, what would say what's a typical like Tuesday for you, mid-season, you're at home, like in terms of like training and riding and stuff like that? Is there such a thing? Do you have like a typical day, or
no? So
a typical week?
Yeah, Chris will normally give me a program in 2-week blocks, or like I'll get the physical 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He might have a month plan, but I'll only see at most 2 weeks at a time. And every Monday can be totally different each week. Like Monday I might have a rest day, next Monday I've got gym, next Monday I've got downhill, or like it's always different. So no day is the same for me really. Quite often he puts Monday as a rest day, which just makes me feel really alienated, because I'm sat at home doing nothing, like I've got a day off, and everyone's like, oh, I've got work today, Monday, I hate it.
Off, like.
So I don't know if he does that on purpose just to wind me up, but every day is totally different. And again, I kind of recently, especially going into World Champs, Chris just left me to it. He handed me a program and said, you're not listening to me anyway, you're not replying, like there's really nothing I can do, but I have trust that you'll do the right thing, sort of thing. So then I just started doing whatever it is that felt right. If I wanted to go and play golf and miss gym, that's exactly what I went and done. So
sweet.
Yeah.
So in terms of this year, do you think obviously with coronavirus and stuff, do you think that almost benefited you in terms of just giving yourself, like, well, I guess everyone had that, but like giving yourself loads of time off? To kind of regroup and then just like come back firing for those last
absolutely.
Good races.
I didn't see any of that stuff at any point. I wasn't bummed out or sat at home going, oh God, I need this to be over. It was like every single day. It was summer at home, which I'm never home for. I had an e-bike, motocross bikes, mint golf courses. Like I was like, this is insane. This is literally the dream. I've been given a whole year to prepare for maybe a few races at the end of it. I was like, this is amazing. That's probably the best case scenario. So I just absolutely reveled in it and was super excited the whole time.
Did you not was there no sort of struggle or frustration regarding that sort of like unknown in terms of like knowing whether it was on or not? Or were you just kind of like, I'll just keep racing, keep riding, be ready for it regardless?
I get so much beef off the whole family, close friends, for being absolutely useless at organising anything. Like I don't plan any further ahead than 24 hours because something might change, so why bother? You know what I mean? It's like, you give me a date in 2 weeks' time, I'll probably forget. But at the same time, I might be there. Like I'm really, it's something I should get better at. But at the same time, I feel that's kind of what gives me an advantage in a weird way, because you don't get stressed out about stuff that you can't control. I just control what I can control, and that's it. The rest will be what it'll be. Just deal with it when you get there.
So there's no part of you, even like before Worlds, where you almost was like, because I think I heard like a few racers were almost like wanting to just for the season to just be like kind of cancelled or whatever. Was there a part of you, I'm sure you obviously don't want that, you're glad that wasn't the case now, but before the races, was there any part of you who were just like, I want them just to kind of like scrap it and like move on to next year?
I wouldn't say so, no. I think the training part, I must admit I don't like training, but I like performing well. So when I know I need to train, I'll train really hard. But if I flirt with the idea that, I might not need to train this week, I'm done. Like, I'm not training that week. So I'm like, you know what I mean? I need to know. And not knowing in that front was annoying for a while. Just because like, we might be racing. So you're like trying to get your head, being in that race setting in your head is a horrible place to be. Like, it's not nice. I become like a bit selfish at home. Like, I don't want to talk to people. I don't want people to talk to me. Like, I want to be on my own. You become a really weird person. Like, you just want to talk to yourself constantly. So if I don't need to be in that zone, I didn't want to be. But then you'd hear you'd have a race, so you'd put yourself in the zone, be a dick for 2 weeks, and then they go, cancelled it, and you're like, fuck, come back out. So it's, you know what I mean?
You just subjected your parents to 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Of like being a dick
just
for nothing.
subjected my family to me being a dick for like a whole week for no reason. So like, I bet that stuff was a bit frustrating, but I guess I got over it pretty quickly. I was like, you know what, this is just what this year's going to be like. They're constantly going to say, you've got a race, you've not, you've got a race, you've not. So I just started not listening. Like, my mum would be like, I've seen the cancel Portugal. I'd be like, sweet, didn't even know. Like, just forgot about it, you know, and I felt like that worked best. So
yeah, I definitely found it ourselves that we had so many shows planned and stuff this year, and it was almost like that little bit of time where they were still trying to make it work. I find quite frustrating because you're like, I don't think it's going to happen, but you still kind of have to be ready for it.
Yeah.
And then like, as much as I did want him to go ahead, because it's like good to be doing it, it's what you like love to do. In some ways, it's like quite liberating when they just finally be like, you know what, season's fucked.
Yeah.
Like just cancel things. But like, I guess luckily you guys' seasons, they managed to get something.
No, for sure. Yeah, I think we're super lucky for that.
Yeah.
Whether what it counts for at the end, there's already so many people that have had a bad time. Oh, it's a write-off anyway. There's nobody going. It doesn't count. I'll always have an asterisk next to it. But at the end of the day, it's racing. Like, I'm not out in the last few rounds, and I'm not going to have an overall. My number board, I'll be super low gun it next year. I won't be protected first round. Like, there's loads of things. But me not being there, I've now added stress to my next again year. So that's still there. It's still happened. And there's a lot of other people that have kind of rode the wave. They've found confidence. You know what I mean? It's still something that's happened and it's changed things. So you can't deny it.
And I think if one event can't have an asterisk next to it is champs, because it's like the closest thing. Well, it basically was. It wasn't like, I remember when World Champs was like leading up, I was like, thinking like Gwen's not going to be there, blah, blah. And I was like, maybe it's not. But then literally all the riders were there.
Yeah.
It was one round before, it's one round now. And it's like the World Cup's maybe a little bit of that, but to be fair, I don't want to take it away from whoever wins that series, whether it's 4 races or 8 races.
No,
it's still like they've been on the top for those races. And like, I'd understand with like maybe say the EWS, whatever, it's like a really dramatically reduced. I think there was like 1 or 2 or whatever, but I don't know, a 4 race season's still a season, I suppose. So.
No, for sure. And everybody had a whole year, and especially those top 5, top 10 guys, they have the money to go anywhere in the world and do whatever they want to train. So like, they knew we were going to be racing that time of the year. We all knew it was going to be wet. We all knew it was going to be snowing. We all knew the year previous it was probably going to be a new track. We know what the woods are like now. There was just so much knowledge that we had that we know before we went there, that everybody then just seemed to forget that they had in the first place. Nobody had prepared for it. Nobody had left their sunny countries. And I was a bit like, this is a world champs, you know what I mean? Why has nobody been practicing? Why did nobody come to Europe and try this stuff? You knew this was what it was going to be like. So it was a bit, I think there's probably a lot of people now kicking themselves going, shit, we had all that information, we didn't do anything about it. So I don't know, maybe next year there'll be more of that stuff, more people sneaking around. And like Danny, look at how hard Danny works at that stuff. He travels wherever he wants to go in his van to ride his bike on whatever tracks he needs to. As far as bike time goes, he's the king. Like, and he works hard at it. That's what he feels works for him. So maybe other people will start doing it.
It's one thing I didn't think of it before, but I was just thinking when you're saying there, like, do you ever like go to the lengths of almost recreating certain parts of like a race, or like even going like, obviously one extreme would be like just finding a track that's say similar to Leogang, or like certain things that you know. Would you ever like go that specific in terms of like maybe like building a corner that you know is going to be like something similar, or a set of like doubles or something that's going to be in the motorway section of Leogang? Would you ever go to that sort of level? I
found out we were in lockdown, we were going to be racing Leogang, there was going to be a new track, and then Coach Chris had quite a few contacts. He was like, I'm pretty sure there's definitely going to be some fresh loam there. So I went and built like 5 minutes from my house on a hill we had never even been on, that I found on an e-bike totally by accident, and built an entire downhill track 1 minute 30 that I could uplift, because we didn't have any around here. The adrenaline uplift was shut, so I didn't have any other options.
Of course.
So I built basically a whole new track that was as similar to Leogang as I think I could make it.
Oh really? That's
And done quite a few downhill laps on it, hundreds of e-bike laps. Me and Max actually filmed on it. If he can get his finger out, you guys might see some of that. But through the spring it was pretty good.
On the e-bike, or?
No, downhill bike, proper
so
downhill
just shuttling
stuff.
you on the
my mum drove me for a bit. We done some push-up laps for filming, but if I was actually riding it, lapping it, I'd get my mum would normally drive me, or my sister, so
cool.
Or Gavin Hamilton as well. He was good help. He drove loads, so
nice.
I went pretty serious, I guess you could say. At the time I didn't realise, because it was just fun. I was like, well, try it.
No, that's cool though. I don't think that should people should be doing more of that. I'm sure people do it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's winning races and it's career and it's a job.
You do that
it's money.
Supercross guys would do that. They build stuff. I
don't think it matters what it is. It's just pride in what you do, innit? It's just like, if you're going to try something, actually try it, and give it a good go. Don't spread yourself thin. Just pick 2 or 3 things and try really hard at them, and you'd probably be amazed.
Sure. That's cool. Nice to go into e-bikes then. Has that been like a key part of your training arsenal?
Absolutely. I think it's the key part from this last year. Like, again, Scotland, no uplifts, but hundreds of hills, thousands of miles worth of trail, and no real way to get them other than a normal enduro bike. And then e-bikes came along. I could go out for 7 hours and do however many runs, like get absolutely blown out day after day after day, wherever I wanted to do it. It was just... What more do you need to say?
Have you been on your trail bike since you...
No, never touched it, and I'm selling them both to get a spare e-bike. Like,
it's like because you basically need one for your friends as well.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's like money. If nobody else has it, it's no use at all because it's just you need more.
It almost becomes like antisocial though because you're having to like go out right. You can only really ride with people with e-bikes, and it makes you become like the biggest dick ever. Like, where you're
I feel like such a dick when I'm riding up and like full trekked out everywhere, like meant to be an athlete, and I'm like spinning up past people on turbo, like having a mint time. And you can see people like.
It's a funny one. It's a funny one with e-bikes with like athletes and stuff. Myself and Greg chatted about it in episode 1, and we're basically all the opposite. Like, if you're sponsored by whether you're on a team or whatever, if you're sponsored by someone who's got an e-bike, you're likely to get given one. You may or may not have been asked to like promote it, and like I think from the outside looking in, it looks like the athletes are just being like sellouts and being like, oh, they're having to promote these bikes because they're supported by the brands and told to do it. But the reality is like you jump on it, whether you're into it or not before, as soon as you jump on that bike, like you're going to struggle to find anyone who isn't into it. Like.
Oh, absolutely. The only people that I've ever seen or heard of that are like, oh, I don't like it, haven't tried one yet. It's the only people that seem to complain. Like, even around this car park, you hop somebody that's never ridden a bike in 20 years. Like my mum and dad, they were just ear to ear grinning, oh, we need one. Like, they'll never ride it, but you can't not enjoy yourself on one. It's impossible. So, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot. The only argument I see is like how much they hammer the trail. So if you've got a squaddy out on some like pretty fresh terrain, you're like, oh God, just big dirty ruts up stuff.
Especially
like,
when you start riding up the trails as well.
Yeah, exactly. I can see there's a bit of an argument on that sense. People getting grumpy at walker pass, but again, it just comes to mountain bikers using their brains and doing what's sensible.
I think maybe if you are riding trails over and over again, you maybe just have to maybe make a little bit more of a conscious effort to put a bit more build days in to kind of repair some of the havoc you've been wreaking on the trails.
I must admit, I'm surprised mine's still going. I've got 2 bent shock bolts. When I start loosening my shock bolts, my shock's like this at the minute. The thing just will not die. Just keep going.
They do take some being.
They're really impressive.
They get ridden more.
Yeah.
And then they get ridden.
They get ridden.
They get hammered more, even for like per hour or whatever, and then they get bashed on the way up and down. But they're class. I wanted to ask you about Fort William, actually. I guess we kind of briefly touched on that, talking about Rudy winning in 2007.
Yeah.
What is it, for anyone listening, like, how would you explain, what would you describe Fort William as in terms of, like, the race and the vibe?
I get asked this so much, and I'd love to give you some amazing deep English answer that was just amazing and just got you all tingly, but honestly, I don't have the words. I'm not intelligent enough to tell you that in feelings. Like, it's just, I don't even know. I think just for so many years being there and watching as a junior and first couple of years elites, and it snowballed going along as spectator. Every year it seems to get busier and busier. And then once I started kind of becoming a bit more known in Scotland and for riding, the fan base started to get pretty big. Even when I was going there with like 18 plate on, I still had this massive group of fans outside the lorry, like every run coming down, seeing crowds of people chanting your name and stuff and cardboard cutouts. And it's just so intense. And you can't get away from it there. You're just stuck in this like cage at the finish line. So you just hear it and feel it constantly. So it's pretty insane. And then to walk out on the podium with just thousands of crying Scottish people with kids and all ages, all groups and riders and everybody, just the emotion at that event is absolutely insane. So
is it something you find, do you feel the crowd helps you, or do you almost find, does it kind of like work both ways a little bit in terms of pressure as well?
I don't know, I guess we started this going into like world champs. I had some external pressure coming out of that, and Fort William and that race are the only two that I've really felt like, wow, this is make or break here. I'm so nervous, couldn't sleep at nights, the full 9 yards, and they're the 2 races that I've performed best at. So maybe pressure in that kind of weird way is good, but then I felt like I had pressure in qualifying at Leogang and made a mess of that. So, you know what I mean? I think sometimes, it's really good, and other times it's terrible. But what one it's going to be, I have no idea how you tell yet. I haven't figured that one out.
I guess it's better to be a rider that does better at the bigger races rather than big at
I'd
the
say
the
so.
smaller
Yeah,
races.
no, for sure. I think I started that quite a while ago, is going to national races and just not even wanting to be there. Really, like wanted to go and ride with my friends, enjoyed the track, wanted to ride, but didn't want to race. But then you get a terrible result, and then everybody's like, "Oh, he's having a terrible season." But then you get to the World Cups, and it's a totally different mindset, totally different experience. And some people that are great at one aren't so great at the other. So.
I guess when there's risk involved as well, there's like an element of like picking your battles a wee bit, of actually pushing it to the real limit.
Yeah.
And if you can kind of like, do that a handful of them rather than
a
group of other races, it kind of makes sense.
That's the thing. You want to. It's finding a speed that you're at 95% and you're still top 5.
Yeah.
That's somebody like Troy Brosnan, prime example, never ever out of shape. Like he's so smooth, but he's always top 5. So then if you see him comfortable on a track he's really enjoying and he finds that limit, he'll be unbeatable. And there's a lot of guys out there that are just sitting on that boiling point, just waiting, you know what I mean? And that's the pool you want to be in, that kind of top 5. I'm only going 85%, I'm still top 10.
Yeah.
I'm going 95% and I'm winning the things.
Yeah, because I think as soon as you're at 100, like, it's almost unsustainable,
It's unsustainable at 100. You can do maybe one run and get away with it. I think a lot of that's Amaree's style up to now, and I'm sure I think you have to go through so many injuries till you learn, right, this isn't worth it. I'm not gaining anything by sitting on the sofa, and you do need to find a way to tame it back, but be more consistent.
Yeah.
And for watching some Amaree's GoPro runs from last year, like I was nervous for him, and I wasn't even on the bike. His front wheel like this off the top of powdery dust berms, just running on thin air, like no idea.
That run at Fort William where he won, what was that,
finish
last
line?
year? Yeah, whenever it was, it was mental.
Yeah, it was
like he was so close to like literally. Well, he still would have won as well if he had crashed and ended up over the line. But fuck me.
Yeah, it ended up underneath the grandstand with the speed he was coming in at. And the same with Leger as well. There was a couple of moments there where you're like, whoa, just screaming, but he absolutely smoked everybody. But he probably could have rode at 95%, still won, because he was winning by massive margins. But he was just pushing it. So that to me, I watch that now and I'm not interested in that. Like now, my focus now is to find a way to be top 3 with only 95%, so you're not taking those risks.
That's cool.
But that it's quite a difficult challenge. That
so you did you got in the podium. First podium would have been at Fort William, which was a 4th in 2018. I must say,
got a bit of a roll after that. It was a good year.
That must have been a pretty big relief.
That was insane.
Of like the pressures and stuff, taking your family up there every year, I'd imagine, and like I had some good results before, but never like sort of proper breakthrough like that. That
was probably the sole race that kept me in the industry and racing. Actually, end of 2017, I didn't have any ride options at all, and Peach came along and was like, "Oh, I can offer you a ride. It's not that great. You only source your own mechanic and pay for him, but if you can manage that, I'll get you to the World Cups." And that was kind of my last chance. I'd been injured the last 4 off seasons. I'd spent way more money on operations than I'd ever even made, so I was so in debt on just fixing myself. So I was like, this is stupid. This is it. Last chance. And then that happened. So it was a bit like...
So that 4th place almost is what got you...
That was it,
Would have got you on track the following year.
Exactly that. That was kind of what got me noticed. That was the last, the old meme of somebody digging in a tunnel and there's a diamond right at the end. That was it. Like I just done that last few axe blows. I was like about to give up, and there it was. It was like so... And everybody was like, there you go. That's it. Now it's... Then it was like starting again. It was like reset. Here we go. And build through it again, and then the trek thing happened. It all just snowballed. So
I think it makes so much sense when you see like how emotional you are at like that race. It's not because it's not just that race that you're in. It's literally like that is you're like getting emotional over your like the future.
That's
future
it.
In the sport,
it's life-changing situations, really. Like winning a World Cup is life-changing. Getting your first podium is pretty life-changing because it got me on a factory ride and blah blah blah. And then winning World Champs is another. They're life-changing. The peaks are so high because they're life-changing, but the troughs are so low because they always result in a whole lot of pain and a whole lot of lost time. It's like that's the only 2 ways it goes. So it is such a... I don't think a lot of people see that from the outside. You need to know somebody that's like all of us guys know people that are dealing with that stuff. I think for people that don't, the odd football and a sprained ankle and stuff, it's brutal. It can be tough. But when you see how hard bodies hit the floor at downhill races and what the results of that are, it's scary. It really is scary. So.
Yeah, because it's not just a broken arm. It's literally could be like...
look at the spinals that we've had the last year or two. That's been a massive thing that for me to overcome is watching Brooke, and I done an absolutely identical to the T. The only thing that saved me is probably I was lighter, but I'd done the exact same thing as Brooke. So after that, for me to be sat with just a cut and getting some stitches in my leg, and
at the same race,
at the exact same race, the exact same time, he was lying on the stretcher and I was lying like lights out looking at the sky, having just done the same, but I was fine. So that was huge, like crazy end, and that was 2019, first year in Trek, blah blah. And you know what I mean? It's just another massive trough where I was like, fuck, that's how quickly this can go. Life changing the other way. That, you know what I mean? So it's like dealing with that as an athlete, trying to balance, like, are these peaks worth it to risk that every single time I ride a bike? And to me, so when you say it, you're like, no, that doesn't make any sense. But for some reason, when you ride a bike, you forget it all, and it's worth it. So. Do you think Brute's crash has had a bit of a sort of rippling effect on the sort of psyche of a lot of the riders? Yeah, definitely. I'm seeing a lot more riders wearing kit, loads more body armour, loads more knee pads, a lot of guys wearing bigger helmets, if not motocross helmets. So yeah, I think that's been a massive shock to a lot of people as far as safety and just how much we're actually risking, you know what I mean? And being more strict at races on getting pads on trees, and like they use some like bamboo poles and we're like screwing them at the stumps and stuff in Leogang. So like if you clip it, you have a crash, and you're like, that's not what we're trying to, you know what I mean? Like there's just no need for that. So just there is some stuff now you're like, wow, if I can wear a set of padded pants and look a little bit bulky, but save my hips when I rag myself, like it's worth it. So there's definitely, there's things changing in that sense, which I'm grateful for. I prefer to wear kit now. Is it in terms of like safety and stuff with tracks? Are they fairly are they consistently good with it, or would you say there's still more that should be doing in terms of like padding at trees and stuff? Yeah, it's pretty hit and miss, but again, I think it comes down to riders. The riders don't speak up very often until you crash into the tree and you're like, oh wow, that's not even got a pad on it. Like what I done, I was like, fuck, somebody should have a pad on that. So I think for me now, walking tracks, I'm going to be looking around going, right, what's stupid? Because there is some things you don't realise how stupid they are until they happen. It's just most accidents, you don't think it can happen until it happens. So it's some of those ones, like if you're ever like, I always find that when we're ever like trying to trick or something in a warehouse for a thing, you're like, oh, should we put a mat across that like bar and stuff right? Well, we've asked the question, so like why not just do it? Let's just put it on let's put it on that tree, let's put it on that thing. But risk versus reward. Is there like a rider representative then that sort of acts as the voice of the riders to relay like sort of things like that? I think there's two riders, Pom Pom and Minar. I've been it for years, but I've not been in the industry enough to know if they used to do more, if they should do more, if they do enough. I've no idea what they do and what their job entails on that front. But I think it definitely needs to be a group of 10, 15 riders, maybe one top rider from each team, and we have meetings after track walk, after qualifying, after race, because they have managers meetings. So I don't see why you can't have a riders meeting as well and have a union of 10 or 15 riders, because we are the ones risking it all, you know what I mean? If you took us off the screen, there's no show. So like I feel like riders should understand that a bit more and see that we are the show, you know what I mean? So like if really it should be on our terms, and there's ways where it can be on our terms and work for everybody else. So I think there just needs to be a bit more communication, I guess, between the UCI and riders and Red Bull. That's interesting, because I saw I don't know if you watched that F1 Drive to Survive thing on Netflix. Amazing watch. It's really interesting, and it's like there's loads of parallels you could be drawn to downhill and stuff. I'm sure other sports do, because downhill is essentially kind of like the Formula One of the mountain bike world. But it's one thing I saw on that was they do have like that sort of driver meeting where literally like every driver will speak to like that race marshal or whatever, and it might be like, oh yeah, we need a little bit more pad, or like we need some more tires on that fast corner, or we need to like, I guess it's money as well, because they can literally then go out and they'll literally like rebuild the track or whatever. But it's a pretty interesting one, unless there's that sort of like line of communication. I guess these things just like don't get. That's pretty much it. They just get missed, and we're so focused on what we're doing as racers. It's kind of hard to take that hat off and be like, "Oh, I'm safety man now." You know what I mean? I'm going to walk around and look for all the dangerous things on a sport where you're like, "Well, everything looks dangerous now." So maybe there needs to be Chris. I know Chris has always wanted to do it and be part of the kind of, I don't know, I guess a riders union, because he's been a racer himself. He's been there, done that, but he's not racing now. So he can stand at the side, think like a racer, but not be one. He's in the perfect position to do it. So I'd maybe like to see him take a role like that. But again, I don't know who makes the choices on that. Don't know who needs to pay him. All comes down to money. No idea. Well, I guess money is an interesting one. In terms of like contracts and stuff like that, do you think it's a hard one to kind of, in terms of like racers and stuff, do you think there's a sort of disconnect in terms of like what riders get paid for the sort of amount of risk that they have to put in, or are you kind of fairly like, are you sort of fairly philosophical about how all that sort of works in terms of like the industry? And no, I think it's gotten far enough now where there are a lot of companies out there making a lot of money out of bikes. Now, how you relate that to, am I personally, me selling bikes? I don't know. because there's no number on that.
You never know.
There's no stat. So that's your first war. It's your bike brand saying, no, you're worth this. And you're saying, yeah, but I'm risking this for you. So what's that worth? Who knows? That when there is no answer to that. So that's your first sticking point. That's where it's never got any further than that, because it's just you arguing what you're worth. But to me, if I sign for a brand like a football or any other teams, you go down on the pitch, you get injured, you're whipped up straight away to the best physio. If you need operated on, you're operated on within 22, at the worst 72 hours, and you're nursed all the way back till you can play in the field again. There's as far as I'm aware, there's no threats that you just get thrown out to the side, you know? Whereas like most of our contracts will all have clause within days of injuries, you need to get moved on, or you can be moved on. Like, it can be quite ruthless. Yeah. So in a sport where it's way more dangerous than football, rugby, everything like that, I don't see why we're treated like that. But I don't know whether, again, it's just come down to riders not speaking up in the past. But like, should we get health insurance when we sign with a company? You know, like if a brand has thousands of employees and they pay them, they cover their insurance and that's part of their deal. We are signed up as an employee of the brand, so surely those things come as well. I don't know. You know what I mean? But like the spinal injuries and stuff, and Brooke McDonald's crash, for incident, the price that would have cost me to get myself home, like insurance, you know what I mean? Like the insurance quote for me in a year with my injury list and what I do as a job is mind blowing, just to get myself covered. You know what I mean? If I actually had an accident and wasn't covered, I'd be bankrupt. Like it would ruin my life if I was stuck in Canada and had to get a helicopter somewhere.
Yeah, you're like talking about like hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands. Like my life would pretty much be over in one incident, and now I'm paralysed. I'm sat at home, I've got no job and I've got no money. Yeah. So you're like, it just seems a bit... there needs to be cover for that.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one, I guess, because it's not... In some ways, the brands could step up, and in many ways, it's not really their fault in terms of like, unless there is like a sort of outside regulation where like everyone needs to get on board to do it. Yeah. It's always going to be a difficult one, I suppose. Yeah. But yeah, it is just a generally difficult situation to try and like navigate.
I think it's difficult, but at the same time, if I was a brand and had that many employees and I cared that much about racing, it was happening. I mean, the chances of you having an accident like that, I don't know what the percentages are, you know what I mean? But there's plenty of riders who have went 10 or 15 years and never had an accident. Yeah. So if a brand had that rider, nurtured them for the 10 or 15 years, could have had a great career and never spent a penny on them as far as injury costs go, you know what I mean? But you could be really unlucky, sign a rider, and you might have to spend the money, but it's just, that's insurance costs. That's why we pay insurance. You might, hopefully you never need to use it, you know?
Yeah, it would be awesome if there was.
But it would be really nice to have brands, especially the top ones, I feel like are in a position to do so. Yeah. And it'd be nice, as you'd feel appreciated as a rider and not just a number on a screen, if they treated you like, you know, you're an employee now, we want you to see you do, we want to nurture you, we want to be here for you, like we're not just signing you for 2 years, see how you do, if you do crap we'll move you on. It's a bit,
it doesn't even necessarily need to be an insurance policy. It could just be a backing from that brand and being like, right, well, we're just going to continue to pay your contract for the next year while you're out. Or
there's just nicer ways to word things and do it rather than just be so corporate and ruthless about it, because we are people and this is a passion for an anyday person to train to do what we do. It's impossible. You either can or you can't, you know what I mean? It's not like the top level of most sports, extreme sports. It takes years and years and years of training to get there, but just because it's not a normal job doesn't mean it doesn't involve the same things. It's just different.
It's funny when you say all that, and you'll still have people like that aren't even in the stream, like, you guys are living the dream, like this and that. No, like, all you do is ride your bike, and it's like it's a hard one to kind of like, you have no idea, like, you get paid that. Like, but
you try and tell people it's a job is a job, no matter how much you love it. As soon as you class it as a 9 to 5 and you do it every single day, it will eventually become a job.
Yeah, and they still don't believe.
And they still don't believe you. Yeah, they still don't believe you, but. Yeah, hopefully everybody's lucky enough to do it at some point. They'll find out for themselves.
It's one thing I've just kind of like given up with in terms of like, so it's easy to get annoyed about that, and you're just like, never mind. It's like,
that's it, exactly.
Like, you're not just getting paid for what you're doing now. You're literally getting paid for the last like 10, 15 years of your life of actually like
the last 10 or 15 years I've earned nothing, and the last 20 or 30 years I probably won't earn anything because I'm going to be crippled. Like it looks good now, but it's only like very short.
Now, length of your career is obviously like a massive factor that people would really think of, and that is a factor in all sports. Well, almost all sports, unless you're a golfer.
Yeah, I don't know.
So you need to
they
get
seem to be in and out. They seem to go forever. The bigger your belly gets, the better you get.
Helps with the sort of counterbalance your swing.
Yeah, I might get into that.
Where do you sort of see the sort of future in terms of the next few years, and then obviously beyond racing? Is there any sort of avenues you can see yourself going down?
I've been thinking a lot about that recently. I've been thinking about kind of where I want, or where you need to have goals, and I think my goals definitely didn't go beyond being world champs. So now I'm here.
Having to do a little bit of a recalibration.
Yeah, and I've won a qualifier and everything else. I'm now like, oh shit, like my whole future is just white. I'm like, no idea what I want it to look like and where I want to go, and now what I want to do with my career. So I need to think about that over the next couple of months. But as a career, I don't know. I think I don't want to do it because everybody does it. Oh, I'm going to go coaching, but I genuinely think there's rider coaching is like something that I could do really, really well.
Have you done any of that? Because obviously dirt school's based near here, and like a lot of the guys like Innes Graham and Rudy have done coaching. Have you ever done any coaching?
Not officially, no. Not officially. I don't really have any certificates or anything to do it at the moment. But like when I'm out and about riding with friends, I've been coaching, like just saying little bits and bobs. You know what I mean? And I've had so many people come back to me going, I've never had anybody explain something so well before. Because I don't think coaching isn't necessarily the knowledge. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't know if you can't read a person and be like, right, sure, how are they gonna understand it? You know what I mean? And break it down and make sure they understand it. Because then your knowledge is worthless if you can't get it to sink in. But for me, I feel like I'm really good at doing that for some weird reason. So I don't know, maybe that's something where I'll go, but again, like I told you, I don't really like planning, and I'm pretty open to go anywhere with it at the minute, so I'm just focusing on racing, getting some more results. I'd love to win a couple overalls, obviously. Yeah. Maybe another world champs, but we'll see when we get to the end of that where we're at. But
have you given yourself any sort of clear goals for 2021? Or is it very much a case of...
I mean, yeah, I get you might as well go shoot for the stars and land on the moon. So I think I'm going for an overall win for sure, because if you ain't in it, you ain't going to win it. I felt like now I've showed I can be a guy, so yeah, why not? Might as well throw all my eggs in and keep doing what we're doing. I feel like as long as I keep working hard and keep learning and don't you know what I mean, sit on the high horse every time I get up there, mum slaps me off it, like get back down, like you know what I mean, you're never done working. So yeah, I feel like if I keep working hard at it and try and stay humble and just enjoy it, hopefully that can happen.
So off season wise, just going to be at home here in the Borders, and
yeah, pretty much. I think we're almost done. We've got some exciting things coming with Trek soon, so hopefully I think January kick some of that stuff off. Got plenty of team camps coming up. So I guess if it starts January, if COVID everything plays out, team camps for January, February, March, and then we'll be into racing pretty shortly after that. So really don't have that long at home. So I'll probably just stick it out here, to be honest. There's not really anywhere else I want to go. Maybe going to France for a bit if it's a bit drier. Do
you feel like, I know we talked about it a little bit with the rain and the mud and stuff in Scotland, like in terms like a little bit more locally? Obviously, what's the name of the town you're from?
I'm from, I don't know if I want to, how many views does this get? We're over like Galashiels, we're east of Galashiels.
You don't need to give me like your specific address.
Location. We're getting some heat recently. We're getting too many suspicious parcels turning up at the house with no names on them. Yeah.
It's fan mail.
Fan mail, which is cool, but you know what I mean, you're a bit like, wow, there's a lot of people know where I live.
Getting some like pants and stuff sent to you.
That's a bit spooky, I wish. The rockstar lifestyle. No, it's, we're over like,
the Scottish border. We'll just say Scottish borders.
Let's say, yeah.
But in terms of like an overall environment and stuff, it's pretty prime spot to be in. Yeah, I can't think of really any better place, really.
No, I don't. I think everybody always in life, in every situation, thinks the grass is greener, and you don't know until you get there. But 90% of the time you get there and you go, oh, damn it. Like, it was pretty good where I had it. It's not that much better here. That's kind of how it tends to be. And I've been enough places now around the world where I come home and I look around and I'm like, wow, this is pretty damn cool, and we are really lucky. The weathers, we pretty much get it all. We definitely get a lot of rain, but it's sunny. It's sunny more than people, I think.
Yeah, it's not as bad. It rains a lot. It's not as bad as people say.
And I think the trails are that rocky and rooty and stuff. It's really, really wet. It's just wet. It's not so much boggy and muddy, if you know what I mean. So I don't think it's not that hard going for me. And obviously with the e-bikes being a thing now, you can just get out and smash your riding out really quick if it's cold. And you're good to go. So yeah, I think this is a perfect place to train, to be honest.
Between like the sort of group of people that must be around, like pros and otherwise, like there's definitely some scene down here. It feels like, I'd probably say it's like the only place in Scotland where like mountain biking almost seems like the sort of main sport.
Yeah, if you took Scotland as a whole and put us all in a big pile, like as a nation, we're really good bike riders. There's a lot of really good bike riders around, especially like say in the Borders, the Tweed Valley area. It's insane. You've got skate park riders, you've got downhill riders, enduro racers, like all top level. MotoGP riders, like we've got pretty much everything in Scotland, which is insane.
Like per like head, it must be some like insane stats. But yeah, I guess Scotland in general like had some world champs between yourself, obviously. I think Michaela Parton came 7th in the female, and then Isla came like
She was fifth.
Fifth.
Yeah.
In
She had
cross
a
country.
really good one. Yeah.
That's pretty insane. Like it's definitely like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously Greg was seventh. It's like some showing like so.
Yeah, a lot of Scottish flags up there. It's cool because I've never. Normally, it's just me and Rory for years. It's just me and Rory Cunningham as Scottish on result sheets, and now there's loads. Obviously, Greg was there, but there's loads more popping up, which is super cool. It's good to see.
Hopefully, stuff can go back to normal. And it'll be
I know.
like Fort William next year.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Not going to hold my breath, but like Fort William with a full crowd next year, like between like you guys all smashing it this year.
Yeah.
And obviously like there'll just be that big release in terms of like post-COVID. But like I say, there's a good chance it's not
I'm not going to hold my breath for that.
But yeah, it's pretty nuts. It'll be some atmosphere like.
Yeah, no, absolutely can't wait for that. Fingers crossed that can at least go ahead. But yeah, with crowds would be cool, but we'll see.
Cool. One random thing we were chatting about last night on the way over here was we were talking about mobile phones and TikTok and Instagram and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you find that something as something I've kind of realised over the last few months? I have a real like unhealthy relationship. This is a total like sidetrack.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Really unhealthy relationship with how much time I spend on my phone.
Yeah.
Is that something you think you fall into that? I think pretty much everyone does, whether they know it or not.
No, that is one of the toughest balances I think everybody faces now, is how much phone time should I actually be having? What is unhealthy and what's not? And I'm the same as everybody else. I have the same battles with my head. I genuinely don't know. I think up to now I used Instagram to get to where I need to be in a way, you know what I mean? It is a tool, it can help. Unfortunately, people pay a lot of attention to the numbers at the end of your name rather than what's actually going on behind the scenes, which is annoying, but it's not going to change anytime soon. So I felt like I got my social media to a point, you know what I mean? And now it's there, and I've kind of established myself in the sport of downhill. Like you say, I'm kind of in that pool of the top 10, top 5 guys. So now I'm like, sweet. I'm done. I can leave and try and chill my phone out of it. Yeah, because it's definitely a hassle. It's definitely hard to deal with. Like you say, every time you post something on there, somebody will want to find a way to twist it and repost it. And you know what I mean? It's just, there's a lot of things can get lost on the old social media, and it changed up. And I'm not that big a fan of it. So
I can imagine it's been pretty hard in the last couple of weeks in terms of like getting wrapped up in numbers, because I can imagine you've been getting bombarded with followers and messages.
It has been, well, I found that quite a few times. Go on my phone and go, oh, how many followers have I got now? And I'm like, why? Stop! Put it down. It doesn't matter. So it has been a constant battle. But this last week, I've definitely been like, sweet, right, whatever. It is what it is. Try and reply to people to be kind, because I feel like a lot of fans really do appreciate that. I remember being a kid and messaging somebody that I really, really looked up to, and they replied, and you're like, what? It's really
pretty
cool.
Insane that like literally by like the touch, it could literally be a like
seconds.
Like you could take a double tap of your thumb to like literally like
change your kid's day. Yeah, exactly.
Which is a really cool thing. But then obviously the downside is you can find yourself, like I know myself personally, I spend way too much time on my phone, and you can kind of justify it as a professional to be like, oh, I need Instagram because it's my job, but it actually only takes like 5 minutes a day to post something, but you spend like the other hour and a half.
You can have 30 seconds for a post in a week, but then the next hour and a half of people commenting, DM, sending it to you, and then before you know it, you're an hour deep and you've done nothing. You've just spoke to random people on the internet that you've never met before, and you're like, this is just weird. I don't know.
How many followers? I've like said it's bad, and I'm like, how many followers you must have sort of experienced a fair upshift in the old.
It was definitely
Instagram.
a personal
It must have
best,
just been buzzing off like.
It was. I think it was 20.
Turning notifications off.
25,000 in 48 hours.
Oh really?
Yeah. So it was a pretty drastic climb, and it's still going like 100, 200 a day, like pretty consistently. So. It's
people are just slowly catching up on the live stream.
Yeah, well, that's it. There's still people messaging me like, "Oh, only just got round to watch it." I'm like, holy shit! Like, there's people taking the time, but it's still trickling through. And then you go on Pinkbike, and my crying face is plastered all over the top of it, and like, there's just a lot of things popping up.
Cool, like, but
it's going to haunt me for the rest of my life.
Do you think there's too much onus put on Instagram in terms of like followers, in terms of when you're like talking about contracts and stuff like that? Do you think? Is it something that's frustrating? Because I guess you sit somewhere in between where you've obviously had really good results, but you've still got a pretty good following. Yeah. And you've done a really good job of like growing your social media. I can tell from the outside looking in, like you're someone that's like, whether it's conscious or not, you have taken the time to like actually like make that platform and build up a following on there. Obviously a lot of people will see you from racing and come over there, but you've definitely built it up. Yeah. But do you think there's like a good balance within the industry in terms of like how people are rewarded for that compared to results, or Is it something you can kind of like?
I think that's definitely something that needs is a good topic of conversation for sure. It's how, again, it comes down to who sells bike. Does the person who doesn't race and doesn't perform and doesn't train, but put out a load of content, get loads of views, loads of likes, and are those views and likes actually selling bikes compared to the person who is risking a lot, training really hard, blah blah blah? You know what I mean? Just to do the two polar opposites. You'd want to see, like we spoke about, those juniors that are struggling, but the parents are trying their hardest, their kids are really training hard, but they're not sat on their phone for hours posting stuff, but they're trying really fucking hard, you know? And then there's this kid over here that's not trying that hard, but they're posting loads and they're doing Shralps and they're tagging and it's all sick and it's cool, and companies are just throwing product at them.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, but what about this kid over here? You know what I mean? He really wants to race. He's got a dream. He wants, you know what I mean? So, but what's this kid's dream? You know, how it's just so difficult to decide what's right and what's not, and where's the value? Who's selling bikes? Who's not? Is your fan base old enough to even buy a bike? Can they afford to buy a bike? Or is it just kids sitting there liking away? You know what I mean? Like, how do you? Because I know for a lot of my stuff, the comments and likes that I get are like kids that don't even ride bikes. None of them have bikes. They couldn't afford to buy a bike. So
they're just appreciating like what it is.
Yeah, they're just appreciating what it is. They just enjoy spectating at it, but they're never going to buy a bike. So like, how do you work out that worth?
I guess
I have no idea.
You just don't. You can't. You just have to kind of. I guess they just kind of have to have their all bases covered.
That's
and
it.
If you can be a rider that does a little bit of both, or a lot of both, you're going to be kind of laughing, I suppose.
Yeah.
But.
I mean, the influencer pool's getting pretty deep now. Like, to be one of the top influencers, you need to be grafting. Like, putting out YouTube content, Instagram stuff. It's definitely not easy life because people want so much of it constantly that becomes, like I said, it becomes a job. It always does. It's not just, throwing a camera around.
Yeah, I think that's like, I've kind of like dabbled in the sort of YouTube stuff. Yeah. Even doing this podcast, and like, it's insane how much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not trying to get kudos, but it's amazing how much like time it takes. Like, to see what, like, say, like you like Sam Pilgrim and stuff have done.
That's it, exactly.
Whether you sort of love it or hate it, like, some level you got to respect it, because like he's like, I don't have a life. He's like, he's literally filming pretty much every day. Is that something you can ever imagine being able to do whilst racing, or do you think it would just be like way too much? I would absolutely love to have somebody to come with me all the time, like a really close friend that just held the camera and filmed everything, because there's nothing better than watching natural stuff, you know, stuff that isn't planned out and it just happens on flow. Like, you look around and go, oh shit, you were filming that. And that's the best stuff. So I would love to have somebody around to do it for me, but I would never want to sacrifice the time to do it myself. And then get caught in the trap of reading the comments, hate comments, love comments, all of it. It can go both ways. It can put you on a pedestal that you shouldn't really be on, you know what I mean? And it can knock you down pretty deep too. So it's just it's a risky pool to be in for me. So I think it would be a really hard one to, like, you guys are like having to be so focused on racing to be able to do that. Edit the videos as well. You would need to kind of have someone that can do it, but
I think I'd just be really worried that people would change my opinions when you say things as well. That's just what I'm saying is my personal opinion. It's how I do things. But people love to sit and go, oh, he said this is what he thinks.
And you might not even fully really mean
and you're
it
like,
well.
no, you're like, oh, I was just talking, you know, like, you just open yourself up for a lot of shots to be fired. So I don't know. The internet kind of scares me a little bit at the minute.
Just
I don't know.
Nice one. Well, I think we've done an hour and 40.
That's pretty decent.
100 minutes. Reece has got to get himself to a game of golf. He's already in his his night gear. So we won't hold him for too long. But yeah, thanks again for
I appreciate it. It's good to be
along.
here.
It's been class. Like I said, like as soon as you, like, that day, I think I actually just coincidentally had, like, on the Sunday of World Champs, like, oh, who do you think I should got next? And literally it was just like Reece. So
no, that's cool.
It's been class to get you on. Where should people hit you up? Social media, I guess, is the best shout. Reece.
Try and not spam me too much, but Instagram, I guess, is probably the best. It's just the kind of the only one that I'm really on.
It's like at Rico
Wilson, Rico.
Not Reece Wallace.
Not Reece Wallace.
Don't want to be giving him too many extra followers than he's already got.
Give me them back.
Mistaken identity. Hope he's appreciating.
Amazing.
But yeah, go follow him at Rico Wilson. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
Go shoot some birdies. Hope you have a good round.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, dude.
Ciao.